Apparently, there's no corporate HR manual for what to do when your husband vanishes with the office floozy during the annual Christmas party, but there should definitely be a chapter on why accepting a motorcycle ride from your CEO might just be the smartest career move you never planned. I'm Scarlett Reeves, and last Friday night at Cortex Solutions Holiday Bash, I discovered that my 7-year marriage had about as much substance as the artificial snow they'd sprayed around the downtown Austin venue. Picture this. Me, 34 years old, standing in my best black cocktail dress next to a chocolate fountain that was getting more action than I'd seen in months, watching my husband Colton disappear into the December night with Paisley Henderson, our 26-year-old secretary who apparently moonlights as a homewrecker. You know that moment when your brain goes full Windows blue screen? That was me at 9:47 p.m., clutching a Cosmopolitan that had gone warm while I processed the fact that my husband of 7 years just ghosted me at our own company party. Not walked away for air. Not stepped outside for a phone call. Full-on vanished with another woman like some discount David Copperfield act. Except instead of making elephants disappear, he made my dignity evaporate in front of 83 co-workers. The beauty of corporate parties is how they turn grown adults into high school gossips faster than you can say, open bar. Within 15 minutes of Colton's Houdini impression, I had 3 different versions of what people witnessed. Version 1 claimed they saw him helping Paisley with her coat. Version 2 suggested she looked distressed and needed assistance. Version 3, courtesy of Janet from accounting who'd clearly been sampling the spiked eggnog liberally, insisted they were practically making out by the valet stand. Standing there in my favorite Nordstrom dress, the one Colton bought me for our anniversary 6 months ago, probably while already planning his exit strategy, I had 2 choices. Become the tragic wife who calls an Uber while crying into her designer clutch, or figure out how to salvage what remained of my Friday night and professional reputation. That's when Knox Sullivan materialized beside me like some leather-jacketed guardian angel with questionable timing. Knox is what you'd call distinguished. 52 years old with silver hair that probably costs more to maintain than my monthly car payment, and the kind of confidence that comes from building a tech company from his garage into a $40 million enterprise. He's also got this habit of riding a Harley-Davidson to work, which everyone assumes is some midlife crisis thing but actually makes perfect sense when you consider Austin traffic. Rough night? He asked, nodding toward the exit where my husband had performed his disappearing act 23 minutes earlier. Not that I was counting. Oh, just your typical Friday evening where you discover your marriage has the longevity of a Snapchat story, I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. But hey, at least the chocolate fountain's still loyal. Knox actually laughed. Not the polite CEO chuckle he reserves for board meetings, but a genuine laugh that made several nearby conversations pause. You need a ride home? I've got the bike outside and something tells me you could use some fresh air. Now, under normal circumstances, accepting a motorcycle ride from your CEO while wearing a cocktail dress would rank somewhere between questionable judgment and career suicide on the professional decision-making scale. But these weren't normal circumstances. These were, my husband just pulled a vanishing act with the office secretary circumstances, which apparently operate under different rules. You know what? That actually sounds perfect, I heard myself saying. Because clearly, my evening can't get any weirder. Famous last words, right? The walk to Knox's Harley became its own entertainment as half the party crowd migrated toward the floor-to-ceiling windows to watch this unexpected development. I could practically hear the group chat notifications starting to ping across Austin as people scrambled to document whatever was about to unfold. Knox handed me a leather jacket. Keep it, I've got extras. And a helmet that smelled faintly of expensive cologne and adventure. Ever been on a bike before? Does the mechanical bull at Cowboys Red River count? Not even close. Just hold on tight and lean with me on the turns. Climbing onto the back of that Harley in my cocktail dress and heels felt like stepping into an alternate universe where Scarlett Reeves made spontaneous decisions and didn't spend 20 minutes analyzing the pros and cons of every choice. The engine rumbled to life beneath us, drowning out whatever commentary was surely flowing from the party windows above. As we pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of faces pressed against the glass. colleagues who'd probably spend their entire weekend crafting theories about what they'd just witnessed. Little did they know, they were about to get enough material for months of speculation. The ride through downtown Austin on a December night turned out to be exactly what I needed. Cold air sharp enough to clear my head, city lights blurring past like some kind of therapeutic light show, and the strange comfort of being in motion when everything else felt completely still. But here's what I didn't know during that 20-minute ride back to my suburban neighborhood. Knox Sullivan hadn't offered me a ride home out of sympathy. He had an agenda. And by Monday morning, the office gossip about the CEO's motorcycle ride would be the least of anyone's concerns. Because sometimes the most devastating discoveries come disguised as acts of kindness. And sometimes the best revenge starts with accepting help from the person who knows exactly what you're capable of, even when you don't. The weekend that followed what I now refer to as the Great Motorcycle Incident of December played out like some twisted social experiment designed to test the limits of human curiosity and the speed of digital communication in corporate America. Saturday morning arrived with my phone buzzing like an angry hornet trapped in a mason jar. Apparently, someone had captured photographic evidence of my dramatic exit from the Core-Tech holiday party, and the image was making rounds faster than a stomach bug at a daycare center. The picture showed me climbing onto Knox's Harley, leather jacket draped over my cocktail dress, looking like some bizarre fusion of boardroom executive and motorcycle mama. My sister Rachel called at 8:23 a.m. with her usual subtlety. "Holy moly, Scarlett. Mom just sent me a screenshot from Karen Williams. You know, her neighbor whose daughter works at that marketing firm downtown. Apparently you're Austin's newest corporate scandal. She wants to know if you've lost your mind or found your backbone." Good morning to you too, Rachel. And for the record, I'm still deciding between those two options. By Sunday afternoon, I'd received 17 text messages, 9 phone calls, and one particularly creative email from my college roommate in Portland, who'd somehow heard about my motorcycle rebellion phase through her cousin's LinkedIn network. The speed at which office gossip travels in the digital age could power a small city. But here's what made the weekend truly special. Radio silence from Colton. Not a single text, call, or even one of those passive-aggressive Instagram stories he's famous for. 48 hours of complete communication blackout, like he'd been abducted by aliens who specialized in removing inconvenient husbands from suburban marriages. Monday morning rolled around with all the subtlety of a freight train carrying judgment and speculation. I spent an extra 20 minutes on my makeup routine, because if you're going to be the center of office drama, you might as well look good while doing it. I chose my navy blue power suit, the one that makes me look like I could negotiate peace treaties or hostile takeovers with equal confidence. Walking into the Core-Tech building felt like entering a wildlife preserve where I was simultaneously the main attraction and the prey. The lobby conversations died faster than a Windows 95 computer, replaced by the kind of artificial busy work that happens when people pretend they weren't just dissecting your personal life with surgical precision. Jennifer from Human Resources practically sprinted to the elevator to catch me, wearing the expression of someone who'd been elected spokesperson for the collective curiosity of our entire floor. "Scarlett, how was your weekend?" she asked with the enthusiasm of a game show host. "I heard you and Knox had quite the adventure Friday night." "Oh, just your typical Friday evening motorcycle therapy session with the CEO. Very standard post-marital crisis transportation choice." The elevator ride to the 4th floor became its own form of entertainment as 3 more people squeezed in, clearly hoping to witness whatever conversation was about to unfold. By the time we reached our floor, I felt like a zoo animal during feeding time. My assistant Marcus greeted me with a coffee and the kind of knowing smirk that suggested he'd spent his weekend fielding phone calls about my personal life. "Your Monday morning just got interesting," he announced, sliding a stack of messages across my desk. "Apparently, half of Austin's marketing community wants to know if you're available for lunch meetings, and the other half wants to know if Knox Sullivan is single. Please tell me you're exaggerating." I wish I was. Also, Colton called the office line 3 times yesterday. I told him you were unavailable, which seemed like the diplomatic way to handle whatever drama he's trying to stir up. The morning progressed like some surreal comedy sketch where every interaction carried double meanings and hidden agendas. The water cooler conversations stopped abruptly when I approached. People found sudden reasons to walk past my office. Brian from IT actually pretended to be fascinated by the printer maintenance schedule just to eavesdrop on my phone calls. But the real entertainment started during the 10:30 a.m. staff meeting when Knox walked in wearing his usual Monday morning confidence and absolutely no acknowledgement that anything unusual had occurred. He conducted the meeting with his typical professional demeanor, discussing quarterly projections and client acquisitions like he hadn't spent Friday night giving his marketing manager a motorcycle ride through downtown Austin. The room's energy felt like a pressure cooker filled with unasked questions and unconfirmed theories. 23 pairs of eyes kept darting between Knox and me, searching for some sign of whatever relationship they'd imagined into existence based on one photograph and 72 hours of speculation. During the budget review portion, Paisley walked in looking like she'd spent the weekend at a spa retreat. Glowing skin, perfect hair, and the kind of satisfied expression that suggested her Friday night had gone considerably better than mine. She handed Knox a folder with a smile that lingered just long enough to fuel another week's worth of office gossip. That's when I noticed Knox watching me watch her, his expression unreadable, but definitely calculating. Something about the way he observed my reaction felt less like casual interest and more like evaluation, like he was measuring my response for some purpose I couldn't identify. The meeting concluded with Knox announcing a strategic restructuring initiative that would begin immediately, requiring enhanced security protocols and careful evaluation of all internal processes. Corporate speak that could mean anything from office supply audits to complete departmental overhauls. As everyone filed out, Knox caught my attention with a subtle nod toward his office. "Scarlett, could you spare a few minutes? I'd like to discuss some upcoming marketing initiatives." Walking toward Knox's corner office while 23 coworkers pretended not to watch felt like the longest hallway journey in professional history. Because somehow, I knew that whatever conversation was about to happen would make Friday night's motorcycle ride look like the opening act of a much larger and more complicated performance. And judging by the way Knox closed his office door and activated the white noise machine he typically reserved for confidential board discussions, I was about to discover that accepting that ride home had consequences I never could have imagined. Knox's office felt different with the door closed and the white noise machine humming, less like a casual workplace conversation and more like the opening scene of a corporate thriller I never auditioned for. He gestured toward the leather chair across from his desk, the same chair where I'd sat during my interview 3 years ago, back when my biggest concern was whether my marketing portfolio was impressive enough to land the job. "Coffee?" Knox asked, already pouring 2 cups from his personal espresso machine. "Something tells me you're going to need it." That sounds ominous enough to make me question every life choice that led me to this moment. He handed me the coffee with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Scarlett, what I'm about to tell you stays in this room until I say otherwise. Can you handle that level of confidentiality?" "Knox, after spending the weekend as Austin's most talked-about motorcycle passenger, I'm pretty sure I can handle whatever corporate drama you're about to drop on me." He settled into his chair with the deliberate movements of someone who'd been planning this conversation for longer than I realized. "Your husband has been selling our client acquisition strategies to Richardson Tech for the past 4 months. The words hit me like cold water. Except instead of waking me up, they made everything suddenly make sense in the most horrible way possible. Richardson Tech, our biggest competitor, the company that had been mysteriously landing clients we'd been courting for months, the same firm that seemed to anticipate our every marketing move like they had access to our internal planning sessions. Because they did. "I'm sorry, what?" I managed, though my brain was already connecting dots I'd been too trusting to see before. "You're telling me that while I've been working 60-hour weeks trying to figure out how Richardson keeps beating us to the punch, my own husband has been feeding them our strategies? Every Monday morning strategy meeting, every client presentation outline, every innovative campaign concept your team develops. Richardson Tech has been receiving detailed summaries within 48 hours. Knox opened a folder on his desk, revealing printed screenshots, email timestamps, and what appeared to be financial transaction records. "We've been monitoring suspicious activity since August. The pattern became undeniable by October." I stared at the evidence spread across Knox's mahogany desk. feeling like I was watching my marriage and career get dissected simultaneously. How long have you known it was Colton? 6 weeks ago, our IT security team traced the information leaked to his company laptop. He's been forwarding confidential files to a personal email account, then transferring them to Richardson through an encrypted messaging system. Knox leaned forward, his expression shifting from CEO to something more personal. Scarlett, he's been using Paisley as his courier. The coffee cup trembled in my hands as another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. All those late-night client dinners Colton claimed to attend. The weekend business trips that seemed to multiply over the past few months. The way Paisley always seemed to know about strategy changes before they were officially announced. She's been playing messenger between my husband and our biggest competitor, I said, the words tasting bitter even with the espresso. And I've been sitting in meetings, wondering why I felt like we were constantly playing catch-up in our own industry. Here's what makes this particularly interesting, Knox continued, sliding another document across the desk. Richardson Tech offered Colton a senior marketing position 3 weeks ago, double his current salary, full benefits, and a signing bonus that would make your monthly mortgage payment look like lunch money. My brain went into overdrive processing this information. He's been planning his exit strategy while sabotaging my department's success rate. Every failed pitch, every lost client, every campaign that mysteriously got scooped by Richardson, he's been setting me up to fail while positioning himself as the solution to their problems. Exactly. And Friday night's disappearing act? That was his resignation celebration. He submitted his 2 weeks' notice via email at 11:47 p.m., effective immediately due to personal circumstances requiring immediate relocation. The audacity was almost impressive in its completeness. Colton hadn't just cheated on our marriage. He'd orchestrated a systematic destruction of my professional reputation while building his own escape route. Every morning when I'd kissed him goodbye and wished him a good day at work, he'd been actively working to undermine everything I'd built at Cortec. Knox, why are you telling me this instead of just firing him and calling it a day? His expression shifted into something I'd never seen before. A combination of respect and calculation that made me realize this conversation had been planned long before Friday night's motorcycle ride. Because Richardson Tech doesn't know that we know. They're expecting Colton to start next Monday with a comprehensive breakdown of our Q1 marketing initiatives, including the Henderson manufacturing account we've been courting for 8 months. They're planning to submit a competing proposal on Thursday. I felt something cold and calculating settling in my chest, replacing the hurt and betrayal with something far more dangerous. Strategic thinking. You want to feed them false information. I want you to feed them false information. Through Colton. Through Paisley. Through whatever network they've established. Knox opened his desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder. This contains a complete marketing strategy for Henderson Manufacturing. It's detailed, comprehensive, and would absolutely secure the account for any company smart enough to implement it. And it's completely fake. Every timeline, every budget projection, every client preference profile, carefully constructed to lead Richardson Tech into the most expensive marketing disaster in Austin's corporate history. Knox's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Meanwhile, our real Henderson proposal gets submitted Friday morning with strategies they'll never see coming. The beautiful cruelty of the plan was starting to dawn on me. You're going to let them hang themselves with their own stolen information. We're going to let them hang themselves. Because this isn't just about stopping the leak, Scarlett. This is about demonstrating what happens when people underestimate both you and this company. I looked at the fake marketing strategy folder, then at the evidence of my husband's betrayal, then at Knox's expectant expression. 3 years of wondering why my campaigns weren't getting the recognition they deserved. 7 years of marriage to a man who'd been systematically undermining my career while pretending to support my success. What exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing that we give your husband exactly what he's been asking for. Complete access to our most sensitive marketing intelligence. And I'm proposing that you become the most trusted source of information Richardson Tech has ever had. The revenge possibilities were crystallizing in my mind like sugar turning to candy. Sweet, sharp, and potentially addictive. Knox, are you asking me to become a double agent in my own marriage? I'm asking you to take control of a situation where you've been played by people who assumed you were too trusting to fight back. He leaned back in his chair. The question is, are you ready to show them how wrong they were? Walking out of Knox's office that Monday afternoon felt like stepping into a completely different universe. One where Scarlett Reeves wasn't the trusting wife who packed her husband's lunch every morning, but rather a woman with a mission that would make Machiavelli proud. The fake Henderson manufacturing strategy folder felt like it weighed about 50 pounds of pure vindication in my briefcase. Tuesday morning, I implemented what I now call Operation Breadcrumb Trail. The beauty of feeding false information to someone who thinks you're clueless is that they never question why you're suddenly so careless with confidential documents. I left the fake strategy papers on my kitchen counter while making coffee, knowing Colton's habit of photographing anything that looked remotely business-related during his morning routine. "Big day today?" he asked, buttering his toast with the same casual tone he'd used for months while systematically destroying my career. "Oh, just the Henderson manufacturing presentation that could make or break our entire Q1 performance," I replied, deliberately sighing with stress. Knox has been breathing down everyone's neck about this one. Apparently, it's worth about $3 million in annual revenue. I watched Colton's eyes flick toward the papers I'd strategically positioned near the coffee maker. "Sounds intense. I'm sure you'll do great, honey." "Thanks, babe. I just hope Richardson Tech doesn't somehow get wind of our strategy." Knox mentioned they've been eerily competitive lately. The irony was so thick you could serve it at a diner. Within 2 hours of leaving for work, I received a text from Knox. "Package delivered. Our friend took photos at 7:43 a.m. Wednesday brought what I like to call the confirmation phase. Knox had installed monitoring software on Colton's company laptop that tracked every keystroke, every file transfer, every encrypted message sent to Richardson Tech. Watching the real-time feed of my husband actively betraying everything I'd worked for felt like watching a nature documentary about parasites, fascinating in its completeness, disgusting in its execution. The fake timeline shows Henderson Manufacturing wants to launch their campaign in March. Knox informed me during our afternoon budget meeting that was actually a war room briefing. Richardson Tech is scrambling to put together a proposal that accommodates that timeline. And the reality? Henderson wants to launch January 15th. Any proposal suggesting a March timeline will demonstrate complete ignorance of their business needs. Knox's smile was sharp enough to perform surgery. Richardson Tech is about to submit the most expensive misunderstanding in Austin marketing history. Thursday arrived with all the anticipation of Christmas morning. If Christmas involved watching your enemies walk blindly into professionally catastrophic situations, Richardson Tech submitted their Henderson manufacturing proposal at 2:47 p.m., complete with budget projections, timeline recommendations, and strategic initiatives that were perfectly crafted to demonstrate their complete misunderstanding of the client's actual requirements. Knox and I submitted our real proposal at 4:15 p.m. on Friday, a masterpiece of market research, client psychology, and strategic timing that made Richardson's effort look like a high school business class assignment. The following Monday brought consequences that exceeded even my most vindictive expectations. Henderson Manufacturing's CEO called Richardson Tech's proposal insulting in its ignorance of our company culture and completely disconnected from our actual needs. They specifically mentioned the March timeline suggestion as evidence that Richardson had clearly never bothered to understand our business model. But here's where the story gets really delicious. Richardson Tech's management realized they'd been fed false information, which meant someone had been playing them from the inside. The subsequent investigation revealed Colton's entire information-selling operation, complete with financial transactions, encrypted communications, and enough evidence to end his career in Austin's marketing community permanently. Richardson Tech fired Colton before he'd even completed his first day. Apparently, hiring someone who demonstrated a willingness to betray their previous employer raises questions about loyalty that even desperate companies prefer to avoid. They also rescinded their job offer to Paisley, who'd been promised a coordinator position as part of Colton's package deal. The Henderson Manufacturing account? Cortec landed it with a proposal so comprehensive that the client extended our contract to include their entire Southwest expansion initiative. $3 million in annual revenue became $8 million over 2 years. Knox called an all-hands meeting that Tuesday that will go down in Cortec history as the day everything changed. He announced the Henderson victory, praised the marketing department's innovative intelligence gathering methods, and revealed that corporate espionage attempts had been neutralized through strategic counterintelligence operations. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for without knowing I was waiting for it. Effective immediately, Scarlett Reeves is promoted to Vice President of Strategic Marketing, with oversight of all client acquisition initiatives and competitive intelligence operations. The conference room erupted in applause that felt like vindication, recognition, and revenge all wrapped into one perfect moment. Jennifer from HR looked like she'd witnessed a miracle. Marcus gave me a thumbs up that suggested he'd been in on more than he'd let on. Even Paisley, who was clearing out her desk that afternoon, managed a grudging nod of respect. But the real satisfaction came Wednesday evening when Colton showed up at our house to collect his belongings. He found me in the kitchen, wearing my new VP badge and reading termination letters from both Richardson Tech and Cortec's legal department. "Scarlett, I can explain." "Oh, I'm sure you can. But here's the thing, Colton. I already know everything. The information selling, the fake client dinners, the promotion you thought you'd secured by sabotaging my career." I held up the legal documents. "I also know that Richardson Tech is considering a lawsuit against you for fraudulent misrepresentation and that your new career prospects in Austin marketing are about as promising as a snowball convention in July." He stared at me like he was seeing a completely different person, which was accurate because the trusting wife who'd packed his lunches had been replaced by someone who'd learned to play chess while he was still thinking checkers was complicated. "How did you figure it out?" "Turns out when you stop underestimating people, they stop letting you get away with treating them like they're stupid." 6 months later, I'm sitting in my corner office. Yes, corner office, complete with Austin skyline views and a coffee machine that doesn't require feeding quarters, reflecting on how one motorcycle ride can completely restructure your understanding of corporate loyalty, marital trust, and the fine art of strategic revenge. The VP title came with perks I hadn't anticipated. A salary that makes my old mortgage payments feel like pocket change, a parking spot with my name on it, and the kind of professional respect that apparently requires destroying your husband's career to achieve. The irony isn't lost on me that I had to become a corporate spy to finally get recognized for my actual marketing abilities. Colton's current situation reads like a cautionary tale they should teach in business ethics classes. After Richardson Tech fired him and word spread through Austin's surprisingly small marketing community, he discovered that betraying your employer while stealing from your wife creates the kind of professional reputation that makes McDonald's management trainee positions look competitive. Last I heard, he'd moved back to Dallas to live with his mother while pursuing what he calls entrepreneurial opportunities, and what LinkedIn shows as unemployed since February. The divorce proceedings were refreshingly straightforward once Knox provided the evidence of corporate espionage that had been conducted using marital assets, specifically our home internet connection and the laptop I'd helped him pay for. Turns out judges take a dim view of husbands who use community property to commit industrial sabotage against their wives' employers. I kept the house, the car, and most importantly, my dignity. Paisley landed on her feet with typical secretary-turned-accomplice resilience. She's currently working at a boutique marketing firm in Round Rock, though word through the professional grapevine suggests her new employer has some very specific policies about confidentiality agreements and information security. Apparently, my little corporate espionage adventure served as an industry-wide wake-up call about the dangers of underestimating support staff access to sensitive information. Knox and I maintained a strictly professional relationship that somehow became the foundation for the most effective marketing partnership Cortec has ever seen. The Henderson manufacturing success led to 3 more major acquisitions, 2 industry awards, and a company culture where strategic thinking gets rewarded instead of dismissed. Knox still rides his Harley to work, though now it's parked next to my BMW in the executive section of the parking garage. The office gossip machine eventually moved on to other scandals, specifically the accountant from the 3rd floor who got caught embezzling money to fund his cryptocurrency addiction. But occasionally, new employees still ask about the motorcycle incident, And I've learned to lean into the legend rather than explain the reality. Let them think their VP is the kind of woman who makes impulsive decisions involving leather jackets and Harley Davidsons. It keeps people on their toes. The most valuable lesson from this entire experience isn't about revenge. Though the revenge was admittedly satisfying in ways that rival winning the lottery while your ex-husband watches from the unemployment line. The real revelation was discovering that being underestimated is only a disadvantage if you accept other people's assessment of your capabilities. For 7 years, I let Colton convince me that my professional struggles were due to market conditions, bad timing, or insufficient experience. I accepted his explanations for why my campaigns weren't succeeding, why clients weren't responding, why I couldn't seem to gain traction despite working harder than anyone else in the department. I trusted his analysis of my career challenges because I trusted him, period. Turns out, the person closest to you can be the biggest obstacle to your success, especially when they benefit from keeping you small. Colton needed me to fail professionally so he could feel successful personally. My struggles validated his worldview where he was the competent partner, and I was the one who needed guidance, support, and careful management of my expectations. The motorcycle ride that started this whole adventure wasn't really about transportation or Knox's sympathy for my marital drama. It was about one successful person recognizing potential in another and deciding to bet on that potential instead of accepting the narrative that everyone else had bought into. These days, I tell people that the best revenge isn't living well. It's living so well that your enemies have to watch you succeed using the exact same talents they convinced you didn't exist. Success tastes sweetest when it's seasoned with the tears of people who underestimated you. And if someone ever offers you a motorcycle ride after your husband disappears with his secretary, take it. You never know where it might lead, but I guarantee it'll be more interesting than crying into your Cosmopolitan while everyone else gets to write your story for you. After all, the best plot twists happen when you stop being a supporting character in your own life and start writing yourself as the hero who was there all along.